Good morning, everyone. Today we'll have one last session together. In fact, this is the last time we'll be meeting for the essay module. And in today's class, there are two things that I want to do. Number one is the discussion of the topics that were given. Number two, more importantly, to tell you what you are supposed to be doing from now on as far as the essay course is concerned. But before I take you to what you are supposed to be doing next, this is the test that was given to you. Yes, the sheets for this, the answer sheets for these have not been uploaded yet. I had a couple of classes, largely my fault. I had a couple of classes with the mains batch in between. I have about 15 essays left to check. They should be checked by around tomorrow evening, maximum day after morning. Friday, you'll get your essays back. You'll get the evaluation, you'll get the feedback. These are the topics that were given to you. Before I tell you what you are supposed to be doing, first let me briefly take a discussion on these ones. Again, for any essay topic that is given to you, a simple structure that you follow, and since this is the last time that we'll be discussing this, please remember one thing very carefully. When you're writing your essay paper, in one word, what is your intention? Your intention is to get marks. You are not here to prove a point. You're not here to do something challenging. You are here to pick the simplest topic in both the sections, the easiest and the simplest topic. Write it well, write it effectively. And ideally, what score should you be aiming for? You should be aiming for a score of at least 125 in both the essays put together, at least 50% marks. Given the kind of essays you people are writing, I am a little strict with evaluation. With me, if you people are able to get about 130, 140, 150, which some students are getting even in the third test, in the civil services, in your actual mains, you should be able to get 150 very comfortably. But even if you're not getting 150, at least 125 every single one of you can get. However, today is the 7th of December 2021. I know that some of you will write your mains in 22, some will write in 23, some may write even in 25. In the time that goes by in between, please do not get manipulated, don't get carried away by what anyone else is saying. You know, on the internet these days, there's an information overload. Students share information with their friends. When they do that, we have a tendency to get carried away by what others are saying. Someone will say that I have heard so-and-so technique, I have heard so-and-so fact, I have heard that you can make diagrams, you can make flowcharts. All of that is absolutely wrong. After writing 3 tests, after writing 6 essays which have been evaluated, I think now you understand that without using any diagram, any bullet points, you can still write a very reasonable and a very good essay. Focus on that basic structure. And for that, 5 things that you'll keep in mind. Number 1, most importantly, start by interpreting the topic correctly. Read the topic carefully, underline the key terms of the topic, rephrase that as a question, and then decide, do you agree with that topic? Do you disagree with it? Or is it only informative? And make a checklist of points that you have to cover. This checklist of points, how long will you take to make it? 2 or 3 minutes if you studied the content. In 2 to 3 minutes, make a checklist that these are the vital points. These are the areas that I have to cover when I'm writing my essay. This ensures that when you're structuring these points, nothing gets left over. With a few students, few meaning, I think about 4 or 5 students, you can realize that, they write the essay, about 80% of the essay is done, and suddenly at the end, they put in one new point. And it's very easy to understand that they forgot to mention this in the earlier part. What does that indicate? A lack of planning. So number 1, interpret the topic correctly, make a checklist. Number 2, for your introduction as well as for your conclusion, the content is the same. One good example, one good anecdote, one effective piece of data. Explain this briefly, modest briefly, about 80 to 100 words. And whatever you're writing here, this must lead to the topic as the last sentence. Why is this important? This is important so that you can reinforce your perspective, your stand on the topic. Number 3, after you've chosen this content, and always choose your best examples for the introduction and the conclusion. Number 3 is body paragraph number 1. Yes, this is one area where students are still struggling. Many of you, when you're writing this body paragraph number 1, this is one area where you're not able to write effectively. Use simple language, use simple words, establish the correlation between different terms. Whatever are the key terms on the topic, how are they correlated? Is there a problem? Is there a solution that is needed? Is there something that we're doing wrong? What needs to be corrected? Whatever is your understanding of the topic, give it here. And when you're framing this, when you're brainstorming, keep it simple, just 3 points. Just 3 points, not more than that. Because this will ensure that you are concise. There are some students, in the third essay I was checking, there are some students who've written 1.5 pages on only this one paragraph. That is too long. And remember, the longer your sentences, the longer your paragraphs, usually the weaker is the impact. The examiner will not be able to understand, he will not spend so much time reading it. So keep it simple, keep it effective. After body paragraph number 1, in addition to this, 5 more body paragraphs, each of them dealing with a different perspective. Whether it is a value, whether it is a principle, whether it is a dimension, 5 paragraphs with 5 different perspectives. And keep the structure simple. What is your concern? What recommendation can you give to overcome that concern? And finally, one small example as a piece of evidence. And yes, here, please keep in mind, do not get into an information overload. There are examples, sometimes more than one example is very relevant for that paragraph. So students are writing 2, 3, 4 examples in one paragraph. See, your task here is not to impress the examiner. Your task here is to write an effective essay that fetches you marks. So if you've got 4 or 3 good examples, choose the one that is the best, write that over here. Don't try to beautify one paragraph so much that your other paragraphs end up getting affected. You still have to complete the exercise in time. All right, simple 5-point structure that you keep in mind when you're making the brainstorming for your essay. Again, before we move on, let me first briefly look at the topics that were given over here. Now, there are 2 topics that are based on reflective essays. Let me start with those 2 first. One very simple topic, a lot of students wrote on this. Integrity is doing the right thing even when no one is watching. First, rephrase it as a question. Is integrity what we do without anyone watching? Answer, of course, is yes. If everyone is watching and then you do the right thing, usually you're doing it either because you want people to appreciate you or because you want people to reward you. On the other hand, you could also be doing the right thing because you fear that if you don't do the right thing, people will criticize you, people may even punish you. In ethics, I don't know how many of you were there in the ethics classes. There was this one example we used to take in ethics. When we said that if you want to check someone's integrity, always check them when nobody is watching. And for that, I used to give you this example of the Polish civil services. In Poland, when you're recruited for the administrative services, for their civil services, they use simple exercises to check your actual character. For example, in the daytime, when everyone is around, if I throw a wallet on the floor, a student who picks it up or a probationer who picks it up will usually return it. Why? Because everyone is watching. He doesn't want to be perceived as a thief. But at night, when they've had their dinner in their mess, when they're going back home to their respective rooms, the same wallet, if it is lying there, there's a high probability that the person will not return it. He'll take the money out, throw the wallet somewhere else, and walk out. Integrity is not what you do when there's a lot of scrutiny on you. Integrity is what you do when nobody is watching. So in this kind of an essay, what content can I use for the introduction? You can use the example of Lal Bahadur Shastri when he was given parole to go back for his daughter's illness, but returned in a couple of days because the daughter did not survive. He had parole for 15 days, yet in 3 days he was back in jail without caring whether or not the British were waiting for him. That is what you call honesty and integrity. You can talk about Mother Teresa, you can give the example of Lebanon, you can talk about the Darsana Satyagraha, you can talk about Azim Premji, you can talk about Oscar Schindler. Any of these examples will serve very well in your introduction or in your conclusion. But these examples I know you can search for on your own also. My task for reflective essays, most importantly, today is to, number 1 again, refining your body paragraph, number 1, and number 2, telling you how to choose your content correctly. The first part, what do you write in the body paragraph? 3-point rule, which helps us understand the correlation between different terms. What are the 3 points here? Number 1, what is integrity? Number 2, why is it lacking? And number 3, what needs to be done? What is integrity? Integrity, very simply, and where will you get this understanding? Pick up the dictionary, you'll see the same thing written over there. Consistently doing the right thing, regardless of hardships or regardless of temptations. In ethics, how do we define integrity? Consistent honesty. But honesty does not fit over here. So make it even simpler than that. Consistently doing the right thing, regardless of the threat or regardless of the hardships, regardless of the temptations. Now, what is or why is integrity lacking? Because most people are not able to regulate themselves. They do the right thing only when someone is watching, only when someone is regulating them, someone is monitoring them. As a result, now what happens? They do the right thing when there is a threat of punishment or when there is an anticipation of recognition. At that time, people do the right thing, not otherwise. And to overcome this, to rectify this, what should we be doing? Number one, inculcate self-regulation. And number two, everyone knows the difference between right and wrong. Without exception, everyone knows in any given circumstances what they should or should not be doing. Therefore, at least, I can't say that you'll always be able to do it, but at least try to do the right thing, regardless of whether or not someone notices what you're doing. Again, the reflective essays have a very strong overlap with your ethics paper. In ethics, I was taking a class a couple of days back, and the first class we take up this case study where someone is going for an interview and he sees an accident victim. Don't help the accident victim because the UPSC is looking at you. Don't help the accident victim because you're going to be appreciated for it. Help the accident victim because it is the correct thing to do. Even if you cannot do it, at least try to do the right thing, regardless of regardless of whether or not someone notices. This is what you write in. There is no difficult word that I'm using here. There's no difficult thought that I'm using here. But very simply, what have I conveyed to you? That it is very important for you to try and do the right thing, regardless of whether or not someone notices. Now, in an essay like this, what content can you choose? Reflective essays again. First, choose the right value. For example, 5 values that can be used over here. There is always the possibility that you use 1 or 2 values that are different. But most appropriately, these 5 would have come in very well. For example, the first value, integrity. So we'll talk about honesty. Why are people not honest? Why do they not behave honestly? Either because they're needy or because they are greedy. What recommendation do you give? Provide the basic necessities, give good value education. And here the example that we give again is Lal Bahadur Shastri. Number 2, courage. What is the problem? A pessimism bias or an imposter syndrome. What recommendation you give? Strong internal locus of control. Example that you give, Marwan Attapattu, Battle of Saragadi, Battle of Longewala, any one of them. That regardless of whether or not the world is watching, at Saragadi, these men fought because they believed that it was their duty, regardless of the threat, regardless of the dangers that they were facing. Number 3, compassion. What is, see again, this, once the content is clear, there's very little to explain here. Why do people lack compassion? Because of the bystander effect. So what do we do to overcome it? We realize or we promote the realization of interdependence. We try to inculcate a sense of gratitude for what we have, a sense of sensitivity towards the suffering of others. Here, give the example of Lebanon if you want, Mother Teresa if you want. Mother Teresa helping hundreds and thousands of people without expecting anything in return. She may have got the Nobel in 1979. She may have been made a saint a few years after her death, but when she started, her only intention was to help others, regardless of whether or not the world was watching, the world was noticing, and so on and so forth. See, now here, the point that I want to, this is again just theory which you already have with you. Point I want to make is that we've got 5 values here. All of them have certain concerns, certain recommendations, certain examples. Even if I change this essay topic slightly, your answer more or less, your essay more or less will take the same form. This I need you people to understand most importantly, because when you're preparing for your mains, at that time, the cost benefit analysis should be very well undertaken. The amount of input that you put should be proportionate to the results or the output that you're able to get. But how you do that, I'll explain that after some time. Now, this is one topic. Integrity is what you do even when nobody is watching. Similarly, another reflective topic that was given was that you cannot cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. So we say that, can you cross the sea merely by staring at the water? No. You will have to get in, you will have to get your feet wet, only then will you be able to go across. What examples do we give over here? Again, you can give Salagadi, you can give Darsana, you can give Darshat Manji, 20 years. but he cut through an entire mountain. You can talk about Oscar Schindler. What did he do? He was very wealthy, he was very well off. He took a very clear and a very direct risk with his own business, with his own life, by opposing the Nazis during the Second World War. And why did he do it? Because he believed that what the Nazis were doing with the Jews was absolutely wrong. You have two options. Number one, again, I was taking a class a couple of days back where we talked about the Holocaust. And someone asked me that, sir, in Germany, was there nobody who thought that what the Nazis were doing was wrong? No, there must have been hundreds and thousands of people who realized that what the Nazis were doing was absolutely wrong. But what did they do? They were standing and staring at the water. They were sitting like most of us do. They were sitting in rooms, they were discussing, they were criticizing, but they did not take any action. And that's what the topic is actually saying, that you cannot change things unless and until you actually start doing something about it. Again, you can use the example of Sunita Krishnan as far as women are concerned. You can talk about Elon Musk, the way he's revolutionizing, changing the world, and so on. Now, these are again a few examples. What does this topic mean, and what will you write in body paragraph number 1? In body paragraph number 1, first you say, what does it mean? That if you want to do, in fact, when I was writing this body paragraph number 1, I was thinking about the students here. All the students that I teach, every single one of them is very ambitious. Every single one of them has some very good aspirations. Everyone wants to, get into good service, do something, be recognized, be appreciated for that. But very few students have the ability to actually get their hands dirty. What do you people have to do? All that you have to do is open a book, put it on the table and read it. That is it. But many students cannot even do that much. They hesitate in even reading a book. So here, what does it mean? That if you want to do something difficult, if you want to achieve something remarkable, you will have to take risks, you will have to show courage, you will have to be disciplined, you will have to make sacrifices. That is what it means, that you will have to do something. But on the other hand, what is the problem? Problem is that a lot of people have grand ambitions, they have grand aspirations, but they do not have the appetite for the labor it takes, for the risks it takes, for the effort it takes to achieve these aspirations, to achieve these ambitions. Problem with most people is that they expect easy returns and rewards. And because they expect easy returns and rewards, they keep sitting, they don't do anything, and unfortunately are unable to achieve their goals. Mains are coming up in January. Every second or third day, I meet at least one student who's writing the mains in January. And when they come to me, they have one common question: sir, I'm not comfortable with ethics. So, and what do they say to me? They say, I want help in case studies, never the theory part. But I always ask them, tell me the definitions of a couple of terms. How is a code of ethics different from a code of conduct? Sir, I'm sorry, I don't remember. Okay, how is behavior different from attitude? Sir, I'm not sure, I don't remember. What can the government change, your behavior or your attitude? Sir, they can change anything by passing laws. Absolutely wrong. When you've not done the bare basics, what are you doing? You are expecting easy returns, easy rewards. You are unable to achieve your goals for that very reason. Therefore, what needs to be done? You need to very simply take the plunge. This is one place where I've used slightly different language. You need to take the plunge and you need to realize that you need to put in hard work. You need to put in sacrifices. You need to put in discipline. You have to have these values. Only then can you achieve your goal. One topic very similar to the one given to you is this statement over here, that a ship in harbor is safe. But that is not what ships are built for. A ship is not built when your parents gave birth to you, raised you, gave you a certain upbringing, gave you a certain education. They did not give it so that you could sit in one corner of the room, watch one program after the other, watch one movie after the other, only daydream all day long. You will actually have to realize your ambitions. And for that, this part becomes absolutely essential, that you'll have to put in that work, that discipline, that sacrifice. How long does it take me to write this? I think about 100, 120 words again. Very brief, very simple. Now, for any such reflective essay, again, 5 values identify. These 5 over here. Explain what are the concerns, explain what are the recommendations, and give finally whatever is the example or the evidence you can give for it. This, I don't think I need to explain. And why have I put the second word in brackets? To say that if you don't want to cross the sea, this is what you will do. A person who actually wants to cross the sea will have emotional intelligence. A person who does not want to cross the sea will be largely indifferent. I am using your example to make it easy for you to understand. But when you are writing your essays, please don't use personal examples. There are 2 or 3 students who in the introduction have given their own story, that I was going here, then this happened, and that happened, and this is what I did. These kind of examples are not acceptable in a theoretical exam. Don't give personal examples unless directly asked, which may be asked in the ethics paper, nowhere else. Here, you please talk on broad terms, use these kind of examples. Viktor Frankl, for example, Abraham Lincoln, and when he decided to abolish slavery. You can talk about Good Samaritans, you can talk about Oscar Schindler, you can talk about Delivering Smile, Sada Gadi, Irom Sharmila, any one of them. Use better examples. Again, I don't think I need to explain anything, but if you want me to explain something, I'll take your questions in a minute. Now, these are 2 reflective topics. Based on these 2 reflective topics, now what do I need to explain to you? Many of the students, when they are writing their essays, are blindly copying the content that is given in the handout without even choosing the content correctly. To understand that, these were 2 topics that were, and of course, that way your essay will not have the desired quality. To understand that, now there are 2 topics. Integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, and you cannot cross the sea merely by standing and staring at the water. For both of them, there is one common value, which is sacrifice. That I understand, that I agree. But when it comes to the concern, integrity is doing the right thing, which means you do the right thing, regardless of not, or whether or not there is any fear of punishment or there is any anticipation of a reward. So here I cannot use risk aversion. Here I will have to use what is moral credential effect? That a lot of people believe that if I've been morally upright in the past, if I've done a lot of right things, after a certain point, even if I don't do the right thing or even if I do the wrong thing, you should not hold it against me. I can always take credit for the fact that in the past I've done so much good. So if I do a little bit of bad, that should not be held against me. Or I can talk about here the need for recognition. That concern, that problem I can talk about for this topic. But if I say you cannot cross the sea, these 2 I cannot use here. Here, what will be more appropriate to use is you can write whatever you feel like in either essay. But if you want to write an essay that is appropriate with the content, many of your essays, I have written one common statement: choose your content carefully. Tailor the content to meet the demands of the topic. This is what it means. You've got 3 points under sacrifice. 2 of them are relevant here, but only one of them is relevant there. So choose your content. Many of you, again, I'm telling you, are merely copying the notes over there. Whatever is written, you're barely copying it and you think that the essay is done. That is not how it works. This is not school. Now, the recommendations for both of them are the same: promote a sense of duty and responsibility, find effective fulfillment from satisfaction from the fulfillment of the task. Now, if I want to give examples, here what example will I give? I will give the example of Irom Sharmila. I'll give the example of Nelson Mandela. 16 years fasting, 22 years in jail with no concern. Aung San Suu Kyi also I can talk about here, but now I can't because yesterday she's been sent to jail once again. So that is ideally an example I would prefer not to use. On the other hand, you cannot cross the sea merely by staring at the water. Here, a better example to give would be Sara Gadi for that same sacrifice. Same sacrifice. A better example to give would be Oscar Schindler. The willingness to make a tremendous personal sacrifice because you believe it is the right thing to do, because you believe this is the only way we can overcome these problems. And now for these 2, if I want to, again what I say, tailor the content. If I want to write the paragraph, how will I write it? These are the 2 topics. Now I am choosing the value of sacrifice. For the first topic, my problem is the need for recognition. For the second topic, my problem is risk aversion. In either of the topics that I'm talking about, I can talk about promoting a sense of duty, promoting a sense of responsibility. For the first one, a good example is Irom Sharmila. For the second one, a good example is Oscar Schindler. By the way, before I forget, did you get the handout I gave you after the last class? Did they upload it for you people? Yes, no. Nobody's talking to me anymore? Great people. Last time I gave them a handout on, how you tailor the topic. Did they upload it for you? Am I audible? Am I clearly audible to everyone? only test 1, body paragraph 1 uploaded. No, the other one, test 2 also. That's not fair. I gave it to them the same day. Okay, I'll have a word with them after the class. This one is just one paragraph because there are only 2 essays, so I can't do more than this. For the last one, I've given it to them about 5-6 days back. I'll have a word with them after the class. They'll upload it to you right now. In fact, just give me one moment. Just give me one moment. I'll forward it to them so that you people get it, because I need you to understand something there. They also really mess it up. When was the last class? Address the topic. One moment. Can you tell Dushar to upload it right now for these people? Right now. Thank you. Okay, I think it should be done another 4-5 minutes or so. Again, your concern, see, there are 3 elements in every essay writing exercise, 3 basic elements in every essay writing exercise. Number 1 is the quality of your content. Number 2 is your structure or your presentation. Number 3 finally is your language. Of these 3, the one that takes the maximum time to develop is your writing ability, your grammar, or your language. This takes time, this needs practice. The content you people have for almost any essay that can be reasonably expected. Your problem right now is this structuring or this presentation. In this structuring, in this presentation, for most of you, the problem that you have over here is choosing the right content and writing it in a manner that addresses the topic. That is why when, for example, I look at these 2 topics over here, my problems are slightly different. Recommendation is the same. My examples will, will be slightly different. How will I write it in the essay? I will write it in the essay. For example, if I'm writing the first one, integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching. Now, what do I say? Here I say that displaying integrity may sometimes require us to make a sacrifice. However, which value are we talking about? We are talking about sacrifice. However, many people are unwilling to do this because they fear that that nobody will notice their deeds or will not appreciate them for making this kind of a sacrifice. Therefore, that's your problem. Therefore, it becomes important to understand that what matters is the deed, not the recognition by others. Because a person of integrity, a man or a woman of integrity and character finds satisfaction from the effective fulfillment of the task itself. A case in point is Rom Sharmila, who fasted for 16 years in protest against the AFSPA without bothering about whether or not anyone noticed what she was doing. Why? Because integrity is doing the right thing even when nobody is watching. In this entire paragraph, I have not used the word concern, I have not used the word problem, I have not used the word recognition, I have not done any of that. That is the structuring of your notes for you to understand them easily and correctly. But when you are writing, you will always write in a manner which an essay demands. This part is my problem, this part is my recommendation, and this part is my example. The same value I can also use for the next topic. And why are we using the same value? So that in your mains, when you're preparing, the effort that you need to put in is minimized. Some ready-made content for any topic that is coming, some ready-made content you always have. Now, when I say you can't cross the sea, again we say that crossing, slight modification we make over here, crossing the sea of life may sometimes require us to make a sacrifice. And very similar content to the last one. However, many people are unwilling to do so because they want the risk to be minimized. Loaded. Thank you. Before they step out of their comfort zone. Slight modification. But such risk aversion, and this is the concern that we have, such risk aversion often inhibits us from realizing our true potential. Therefore, whether bothering about whether or not we succeed or whether or not we fail in our endeavor, we should focus on deriving satisfaction from the fulfillment of the task itself. A case in point is the German industrialist Oskar Schindler, who was so concerned with what the Jews were facing that he was willing to take significant personal dangers, spent his entire fortune in saving the lives of 1,200 Jews from deportation and from death. Why? Because you cannot cross the sea only by standing and staring at the water. About 80% of the content over here, if you exclude the example, 80% of the content is the same. The point is the same. The only thing that you're changing is the manner in which it is being presented to you. Which is why, again, you have the content, your language will improve over some time. Focus on structuring and modifying the content to suit the topic. And from the last class, the discussion that we've taken up, I think they've uploaded that for you now. Please take a look at that. How the same value, the same examples will be written slightly differently depending upon the topic that is given to you. It's unfortunate that they're uploading it today, but nonetheless, you can still use it immediately after the class. That's your first two topics that were given here. Then the topics that came were largely factual. What do you mean by factual topics? That interpretation is lesser, information is greater. For example, one topic said that being poor is very expensive. Everything comes at a terrible cost. Now, when we say everything comes at a terrible cost, what is everything? Everything is access to justice. Everything is dignity. Everything is healthcare. Everything is education, nutrition, daily standard of living. Everything is difficult for a person who is poor. First thing that you do is interpret it, rephrase it as a question. Does everything cost more for poor people? Answer is yes, so I agree with it. Now, what will I use in the introduction? You can use the study that was conducted by Ashoka University to show the differential impact of the COVID lockdown on different categories, different communities of people. You can always say that the physically disabled people in India constitute only 0.3% of the workforce in private firms. There are 3% people in India who have physical disabilities, which means the remaining 2.7% may not be able to earn a reasonable livelihood. Third, you can talk about access to inpatient department facilities, catastrophic healthcare expenditure, 7% of the population pushed below the poverty line, any of these examples. Why? Because being poor is very expensive. Everything comes at a terrible cost. Now, in the body paragraph, what will you write? Explain the topic, explain the terms over here. So in the body paragraph, what does this mean? It means that poverty, now this, what I've written here is not important. Where I've taken it from, that is more important. Where have I taken it from? In your class, in the handout that is given to you on poverty, in the third principle, when we're talking about social justice, in the last part, these are somewhat 7 or 8 paragraphs that was given. And that day also I told you that these paragraphs will be very useful when you want to connect your thoughts, when you want to express your thoughts. That's why I've taken this almost directly from there. What does the topic mean? The topic means that if you are poor, if there is poverty, it creates exclusion, it creates physical and economic insecurity, it creates a fear of the future, and it gives us a constant sense of insecurity. Where have I taken this from? Again, directly from there. Now, what does this cause? If being poor is very expensive, what does this cause? Everything becomes expensive or difficult to access. What have I conveyed to the examiner? That expensive means that many things are not within my reach. Why? What becomes difficult? This includes economic well-being, social rights, such as the right to justice, such as the life of dignity, such as equality, food and safe water, education, healthcare, and so on. You don't have to write all of them. Write 2 or 3, and the examiner understands what you're trying to say. And now I'm just using the three principles that we talked about. We should take steps to promote the alleviation of poverty, empower people to fight poverty on their own, and try to promote social justice. Not one single difficult word, simple understanding in one paragraph, again 100 to 120 words. And now when I have to give you the body paragraphs, in the body paragraphs, what will I write? This again, I could fit only 4 of them over here because there was no space left. But you can choose as many of them as you want. Now, if being poor is very expensive, why does that happen? Because number one, if you take a look at alleviation, we lack good healthcare, we lack good nutrition. That's what we want. Problem is lack of access to healthcare facilities, catastrophic healthcare expenditure. What recommendation will you give? Improve physical reach, provide free primary healthcare services, pandemic risk pooling, and so on. And what evidence? Choose one example. Depending upon the problem that you're choosing, if you're talking about nutrition, say Poshan Abhiyan. If you're talking about risk pooling, talk about a pandemic risk pool recommended by the IRDAI. One problem, one recommendation, and one piece of evidence. No information overload. This is for your understanding. You write only one per paragraph, but write it well. Similarly, if you look at it again from an economic point of view, what is the problem? A lack of financial inclusion. What does that lead to? Lack of access to financial services, lack of comprehensive, free, affordable insurance. So what do you recommend? For example, you say that you provide financial literacy. And if you want to provide financial literacy, again, you could have talked about economic empowerment. How do you ensure economic empowerment? By promoting employment opportunities. What is the problem? At the moment, jobless growth. At the moment, automation. At the moment, rural urban migration. Pick up one, maximum two of them. What recommendation will you give? You will say that we should have a reform of factor markets. Focus on those areas, on those sectors that have maximum employment elasticity. And again, some government programs that you can mention as your example, and so on. See, this is just factual content. This is not the concern, because this is written in your handout. This you can literally copy directly from there. Concern, more importantly, was this part. If body paragraph number 1 is well written, if it a clear understanding of what you want to convey and how your essay is going to progress, that you are going to tell us what are the problems that poverty is causing and what are the solutions that we can have, and in this particular sequence in a very systematic manner. Before I move on, so far does everyone follow? Before I move on, so far does anyone have any questions? All right. Then again, moving on, see, this is again, once you get the hang of it, the rest of it is easy to understand. The COVID crisis has exposed the chinks in India's healthcare armor. What does that mean? That because of the COVID crisis, we've been able to see more clearly the problems that we've always had for a long time in our healthcare sector. So definitely I agree with it. What content can I use for my introduction or conclusion? The second COVID wave, vaccine hesitancy. With vaccine hesitancy, you can talk about a lack of scientific temper, reliance on quacks, reliance on medicines that are unproven, that do not seem to have any basis in scientific evidence. You can again to say that everyone stay inside your house, but a person who's not physically mobile, a person who has Alzheimer's, a person who's dependent on others, this person may not be able to manage even their everyday existence. Even on a daily basis, it may become difficult for them. So here now, once you address this, what do you write in body paragraph number 1? First, what happened during the crisis? What happened during the crisis? First say that when the COVID crisis hit, it was very important for us to, and this word must be a part of your essay, it was very important for us to impose a very harsh lockdown. How many cases did we have in India that time? When the lockdown was imposed, India had a total of 570 cases. That was it. But we were very concerned that our healthcare system will not be able to deal with the burden of patients if this is not controlled. So essentially, it was not to only prevent the spread of the infection, it was more importantly to prepare the healthcare system in the meantime to deal with the burden of patients that we knew was coming. That is why we had to do it. On the other hand, what did this expose? This exposed the fact, or the COVID crisis exposed the fact, that a lot of people died avoidable, preventable, and unnecessary deaths. Why did they die avoidable deaths? Many people were not able to get admitted for treatment. When they got admitted for treatment, they did not get access to basic medicines, even oxygen. The hospital staff, the medical staff was overworked, was overburdened. At the same time, we did not have the ability to pay them. Motivation fell further. And in the future, people had even more problems in dealing with medical care. To overcome this, what do we need to do? What words am I writing over here? I'm again writing the principles that are given in your handout. That we need to improve accessibility. We need to improve affordability. We need to ensure scientific temper. We need to ensure health insurance, affordable, universal health insurance, and so on. Not one single difficult thought, not one single difficult word, simple and very basic paragraph. No evidence, no examples, no data. Focus on writing this paragraph effectively, as smoothly, as effectively, as simply as you can. And if I want to implement this, what will I say? What will be right in the body paragraphs? Now here again, this is a lot of information given here. You can talk about accessibility. In accessibility, you can say we should have universal coverage of healthcare. What concerns do we have? People in rural areas, people in remote areas who may not have this access. For example, in the state of Himachal Pradesh, in the first COVID wave, very few people were affected, especially in rural areas. Why? Because of their geographical location. They're very far away from densely populated areas. In the second wave, however, by the time the infection reached there, a lot of people were not able to get treatment. Why? Because they did not have universal coverage. Getting to the nearest facility, getting a test done, only section A body paragraphs are there. Only section A, yes, that is reflective paragraphs. I'll just explain that to you in a couple of minutes. Let me just first finish this, then I'll explain that to you. So, what do we recommend? Improve physical reach, increase frontline services, community-based care. For example, the co-location of Ayush services, use of more ASHA workers, use of Anganwadi, and so on. Similarly, accessibility, in accessibility, talk about affordability. For affordability, what is your problem? The difference between the rich and the poor, haves and have-nots, catastrophic healthcare expenditure, out-of-pocket expenditure. What recommendation can you give over here? You say that we should provide free primary health care, provide health assurance, and the example for that is the PMJ scheme. And again, this is just information which is again, I'm reading out from your handout. This was the next topic that was given to you. Another one was the climate is changing and so should we. Now here it becomes very factual. Should we change? Answer is yes. What examples will you give? Brief examples. For example, the Hindu Kush Himalaya assessment report, Earth overshoot day and how it is coming closer with every passing year, ecological footprints, carbon footprints, the Pacific garbage patch, and so on. In the climate change, now here again, because I'm just reading from here, in the climate change topic, what will you do? First, explain what is the concern. Concern fundamentally is that climate change is a very real, is a very visible, is a threat which is affecting us on a day-to-day basis. And now the changes are easy to see. As the effect of climate change precipitates, as it becomes worse, it will impact every dimension of human existence. It will affect your access to clean air and water. It will affect food security. It will affect poverty. It will even affect conflict between nations. As water sources start drying up, the next set of wars would not be over any rich minerals. It will usually or invariably be over water. In these circumstances, what is needed? That human activities need to be better regulated and aligned to reverse our impact. If not reduce, at least reverse the impact on climate change. And for this, what do we need to do? Synergy and cooperation on an individual level, institution level, as well as on an international level. For example, cooperation between nations also. And the content for this is directly again written there. That much let me not get into now. One final topic that was given to you, and again, the first body paragraph that you need to focus on is the new education policy. Now, this is a very factual topic, completely factual. What is the new education policy and how will it change our education landscape? If you're writing your mains this year, if you're writing your mains in January, this is a topic that has a high probability of coming because the government is really focusing upon this. But it's completely factual, so what will you write? In the introduction, talk about something positive. Don't talk about negative, talk about positives. For example, the new education policy says that we should have a 100% enrollment ratio by 2030. We should ensure that the pupil-teacher ratio is brought to 30:1. You should promote the Pradhan Mantri Vidya Lakshmi Karyagram. You should ensure that more and more of your workforce receives formal education. You should promote adult literacy. You should promote digital literacy, Diksha, and so on. Pick up any one of them. You have more than enough content in your handout. Write one paragraph. What is that doing? Telling you the positive aspirations of the education policy. Now, the education policy focuses on different parameters, focuses on different areas. Those you can read from there. But how will you write the body paragraph for such a factual topic? Start by saying, and again, where am I taking this from? The very first part of education, where we said what are the ideal conditions for education. The National Education Policy says that the employment landscape is changing rapidly. This needs us to adjust and to incorporate the rapid changes in the knowledge landscape. For this, why do we need to do this? because this will benefit us on an individual basis as well as on a national basis. On an individual basis, what is the advantage? Civic and economic opportunities, the ability to grow personally as well as professionally. On a national level, what is the advantage? It is a force multiplier, will enhance the success of other development programs. But to achieve this, the national education policy aims to do it in a comprehensive and in a holistic manner by focusing on school education, higher education, vocational, adult, and digital education. And now I will write 5 paragraphs. Each one of them will take up one of these areas, one concern, one recommendation, and one piece of evidence. Simple, theoretical, factual essay, which will be easy to write. But this part focus on, what should I say, focus on propagating, on promoting your national education policy. Does everyone follow? For a topic of this sort, this is the government exam. Since we are talking about a government policy and since they are trying to say it will change, do not disagree with it. Mention the problems and mention how this policy seeks to address them. Last class, there's a student in your batch who told me that, sir, can you please explain this topic to me? I don't know whether for him or for others also. Briefly, let me take a look at this one also. This is not a part of your test, but he had said that you please explain this. So I'm taking a look at this. Customary morality cannot be a guide to modern life. Now, what is customary morality? Customary morality is morals or values that have been traditionally affected by your society, by your culture, by your country, by your norms, by your traditions, and so on. Can it guide us? To some extent, the answer is yes. To some extent, the answer is no. Customary morality should continue to guide us if you talk about positive values. What are positive values? Honesty, courage, compassion, tolerance, sacrifice, hard work, and so on and so forth. But there are certain areas where customary morality now needs to be put aside. It should not be used in the future. What are those areas? Those I put right here in the introduction itself, and different parts that you can pick up. For example, the treatment of women. In the treatment of women, what do we not want anymore? We don't want, for example, sati, for example, devdasis, for example, Sabrimala. Now, here please remember, the topic says customary morality. Customary morality. So you will have to show how any of these was related to morality. Where will you find the content for this? In your handout on women, not reflective essays on women. In women, for example, you realize what is given to you is that sati was a practice that was considered to be a very, what should I say, very prominent honor that a married woman could enjoy. Devdasis were not considered inferior. They were considered to be women who were married to God. Their life purpose was to serve the God that they were married to. In Sabrimala, why were women not allowed? Because women menstruate, and that was considered to be dirty or unhygienic. The god, the deity that is worshipped in Sabrimala was considered to be celibate, and since he was celibate, the entry of women was completely rejected. However, these are the kind of notions, these are the kind of traditions which do not have place in a modern civilized society. What other morality do you not have? For example, racial discrimination. Again, keep that word in mind, morality. Where will you find this kind of, what should I say, flawed sense of morality? In South Africa and the practice of apartheid, racial segregation. You'll find it in Germany right before the Second World War, in the myth of Aryan supremacy. That since Jews are greedy, since Jews are exploitative, since Jews are substandard compared to the Nazi population or the Aryans, they deserve to be subjugated, persecuted, even cleansed from society. But this kind of understanding we do not want today. Do you have this kind of society today? Answer is yes, in India. In India, we've started raising a lot of questions against people. You will not write that, of course. This is just for your understanding that there are certain sections of our country, of our society, which do not deserve to be in a modern mainstream India. Similarly, you can talk about a lack of scientific temper and a geocentric world. In the past, people believed that if you said the world, or at least our solar system, is not geocentric, it is heliocentric. We revolve around the sun, not around the earth. Your question, just give me a few minutes, I'll take them up. So you say that, here a person like Galileo also would be terribly criticized because he was trying to change the morality of the time. Depending on how much you've read, you can talk about flat earth. A lot of people believe that the earth was flat. After a certain point, you would just fall off. But those kind of notions cannot guide us. You have to have scientific temper. You can talk about civilizational supremacy, for example, the Britishers, for example, the colonization of Africa, the colonization for that matter of India. When the Britishers came to India in the beginning, they believed that we were very dirty, we were very regressive, we needed civilization which they were bringing. In the mid 19th century, which means 1830s, 1840s, when they started excavating, when they started exploring the country well, that is when they realized that centuries back, we had made Ajanta and Ellora, we had made Khajuraho, we had made the Taj Mahal, we had the Qutub Minar, which was 7 centuries old at that time. And then they realized that our civilization, if not better than theirs, was at least at par. But this sense of morality, the Britishers never governed anywhere for any imperial power, the Japanese for that matter, did not govern because they wanted to exploit. They genuinely believed their sense of morality was that we're bringing civilization to these people. Now, maybe we can speak in English, we can wear Western clothes. Fact of the matter is, a lot of advancements which the world is using today have been developed by us centuries and centuries back. So that sense of morality needs to be done away with. You can also talk about the treatment of minorities. You can talk about the LGBT community. You can talk about animal rights. That earlier they were only considered as a beast of burden. Now they are given certain rights. So here, what am I doing? All these examples. Now this is for the introduction and conclusion. Why? Because I need to emphasize very clearly that there are certain values, certain notions of morality that do not fit in a modern world, in a modern life. But in body paragraph number 1, what will I write? I will partly agree. How do I partly agree? First, what is customary morality? Briefly, I will explain that this is your sense of morality, your understanding of morality that is related to customs, religions, traditions, society, and so on. Number 2, where can customary morality act as a guide for us? Again, values that are positive: honesty, tolerance, courage, compassion, sacrifice, and so on. Where can customary morality not act as a guide for us? It cannot act as a guide for us where there are traditions and norms which have either reinforced the domination, the subjugation of minorities or certain communities, or where they have supported regressive thinking. Their customary morality, customary values need to be replaced by more modern, more liberal, more scientific values. This is what you write, and now 2 or 3 paragraphs tell us about values that we can use. Couple of paragraphs tell us about values that we cannot use. For example, we cannot consider anymore, we cannot consider women to be an inferior gender. Anymore, we cannot consider that a person who's gay, who's homosexual, has a disease, has something wrong. If their sexual orientation is not heterosexual, it does not mean that there is something unusual about them. Each person is unique in their own way. So that sense of morality should not be included. And again, emphasize the word morality because you must show how at some point, for example, if I look at 377, when 377 was enacted, that was about 170 years back, people genuinely believed that a person who was homosexual was a threat to the existence of society. That if everyone turned homosexual after a certain time, the human race may cease to exist. But today, that understanding is gradually changing, is gradually evolving. That's why we say that customary morality cannot always be a guide to modern life or to any modern civilization. This does everyone follow? This is everyone clear? All right. Now, these are the topics that were given in your test. Now, there are some concerns that I have that still exist in your writings and what you're putting over there. This is cotton cut at the bottom. But this I'll just come to in a second. Let me just leave it over here. Let me first see what a couple of students are writing here. We get one model, reflective model essay or topper's copy to understand linkages and flow between values. Okay, I'll answer that also in a minute. In test number 2, now let me answer the first question over here. In test number 2, there were 2 areas, 2 sections, section A and section B. Section A contained reflective topics. The handout that they've just uploaded for you 4-5 minutes back contains only the topics from section A, because it is only here that I can tell you how to tailor the content. When it comes to other topics that are on poverty, on education, or women, there are some areas that might overlap, but largely the essays are different. In reflective essays, on the other hand, for your sake, I really hope that the UPSC has standardized this. For the last 3 years, Section A only contains 4 reflective topics. For your sake, I hope that they continue with it, because if they continue with it, you will realize once you start practicing that what you're writing in one reflective essay, even if you change the topic, minimum about 1/3 of the content will be the same. If you're lucky, as much as 70-80% of the content can be the same. Content will be the same, only minor modifications are needed. I have done this and I have put this over here for reflective essays to help you understand how the same value, the same problem, the same recommendation can fit one topic and another. Point number one. Point number two, how there are slight modifications that are required depending upon the topic. Don't just write what is given in the notes, modify that, tailor that to suit the demands of the topic. That's why you've got only section A. Number one. Number two, someone is saying that, sir, can we get toppers copies, or can we get, people who are doing well? Now, there are some students, in fact, 2, 3 of them I can see on the screen in front of me. These are people in the second class also, in the second test also. I tried to cut their marks. I really tried that, I should give them some lesser marks so that they get a little scared and they don't get complacent. But the way that they were writing, it was literally impossible to cut their marks. I don't know where to cut. The language is good, the content is good, it is well organized, there's a little bit of innovation, examples are very well written. I really could not cut their marks. So if I wanted to show you a couple of essays, I can probably show you theirs. Problem, however, is that students say that, sir, if I have written something, it is my intellectual property. And they say that, sir, if you are sharing it with everyone, then the problem is that I worked very hard on it, but you've given it to everyone. If a similar topic comes, everyone is going to write that. That's the problem. So if these students don't have a problem with it, I will get their essays uploaded for all of you, and you can read what they've written to understand how that essay flows. Do not go by this common misconception that toppers write very well. I have checked a lot of essays. In fact, these days also, other than yours, I'm checking essays for students who are in the services but are giving the exam again. And I'm telling you, and I'm not trying to make you people feel good. Some of you are writing better essays than students who are in the services. Their essays, it's not that they're writing bad essays, but their content is very disorganized. The flow is very haphazard, is very unstructured. So if these people don't have a problem and they know who these people are, those who have got 150 in the previous essays, you know how much your marks were. If you don't have a problem, you can write yes over here, and it's completely up to you. If they say yes, I'll get them uploaded for the rest of the students. If you don't have a problem, don't. If you have an issue, don't write anything. I'll understand. And at the end of the day, it's your effort. So I really, nobody can compel you. No problem, sir. Okay, at least one person has said no problem. So we'll do that. His essays, I'll have them put up for you. Now, some concerns that still exist. Next 15 odd minutes, I need you to pay attention. Don't look here and there. Pay attention to number one, what are your problems? And number two, what you are supposed to do from here on, whether you are writing your exam in 2021 or in 2022 or whenever you expect to write your mains. What you're supposed to do and what your problems are, understand that. First and most importantly, most students who write the essay paper or when they are writing essays do not have a clear structure, do not know what to write, do not know how to write. Many students have this misconception that when you're writing an essay, current affairs are very important. Current affairs are important, but they are not necessary. I'm repeating this. They are not necessary. If you can add some information which is contemporary, the examiner can probably relate with it. There are some topics which are completely contemporary. For example, if I ask you about agricultural laws, if I ask you about international relations, if I talk about some economic issue that has arisen in the recent past, that is very, very specific and that is very, very current. But that will be one topic in one section. Section A is reflective topics where contemporary issues are minimal. Section 2, we can talk about education, we can talk about poverty, we can talk about women, we can talk about healthcare. Again, it may be very limited, the impact of parents. So don't get carried away by this. You are supposed to prepare your content in such a way that next year, let me assume that all of you are writing your prelims in June. Let me assume that the result for the prelims comes out on the 1st of July. Let me assume that all of you are going to write your mains in October. You have the month of July, August, September, 3 months to revise the entire GS papers, revise your option papers, to write test series and then prepare for the essay also. Therefore, understand, I've checked your answers, I've seen how you people are writing. You people are on the right track. All that is needed now is two things. Number one, appropriate content. And number two, the content structured in such a manner that you can revise it quickly. But there are some problems that you still have. First, for example, and this with every test I've seen, the third test I've got about 15, 16 essays still to check. But even in the ones that I've checked, I've realized at least one or two students will do this. They will try to be different. They will try to be radical. Please remember again what I was saying at the beginning of the class. You are not here to prove a point. Nobody cares about how innovative, how radical you are. This exam in fact rewards conformity. So don't choose an unnecessarily difficult topic, a topic on which you do not have content. And when you get the topic, don't twist it to suit your needs. Choose a simple, easy, effective topic. Choose it wisely. Number two, understand the demands of the topic carefully. Not what your thinking is, what you believe would be the universal thinking, what the examiner expected from you when you were setting that topic. And number three, in your essay, for any reason, do not try to force divergent views. Do not try to force divergent interpretations. Some students are doing that. If you have very high intellectual abilities and excellent writing abilities, you may be able to do this. But I am telling you, that will happen with one student out of maybe every 50, 60,000, maybe one student. So do not take that unnecessary risk. I have seen students myself who get 140 in 1 year, get 70 the next year in the essay paper, usually because they must have made some sort of an error such as this. Second problem, which is more common for you people, is digression from the demand of the topic. The topic is talking about one thing, you people digress, you go on a different tangent which addresses some very indirectly related areas. Here what you do, tailor, and that's what I've been telling you, and that's what that handout is for. Tailor the content according to the topic. One small word, one small sentence here and there will make a huge difference in how the same content addresses that topic. Now, there's a boy in your batch called Ashwath. I have checked, in fact, I've checked his third essay also. I don't remember how much he's getting in the third. He's getting 140 plus, that much I remember. This boy in the first one, I don't remember his marks, but he's got 145 plus in all three tests, 140, 145 plus. Every time I try to cut his marks because I don't want students to get overconfident right now. I try to cut his marks, but it is literally impossible. His essays, I will get them uploaded for you. The second test that was given, only that one I'll upload for you. When you read it, just focus on one thing. How does he tailor the content according to the topic? All three I will not do, that is not fair to the student. One test, test number 2, I'll get it uploaded. See how he tailors the content according to the topic. Then, if he's written the same topic as you have, now compare when you picked up a certain value, let's say reflective essays. If you picked up a certain value and wrote a paragraph, he had the same information, he also wrote the paragraph, but his paragraph will be different. How is it different? Try to understand that, and there you'll realize what we mean when we say tailor the content according to the topic. One small sentence, one small word will make a huge difference. Third, reinforce the topic repeatedly. And when we say reinforce the topic repeatedly, one simple tip I'll give you for this, use the terms of the topic. Use the term, whatever are the terms given in the topic, try to ensure that you write them a couple of times inside your paragraph. Because when you write them, it does two things. Number one, it helps the examiner understand that you're focusing on the topic. And number two, it reinforces your memory as far as the topic is concerned, that this is what I'm supposed to be addressing. So simple tip, as far as possible, use the terms of the topic in your paragraphs. Third problem that some students, in fact, most of you are facing a problem over here, which is body paragraph number 1. For body paragraph number 1, simple 3-point rule. Use just in 3 bullet points, just write first when you're brainstorming, what do you think what do you think the terms of the topic are, and how are they related to each other? And when you are doing that, use simple words, use simple language, nothing difficult, nothing fancy. Don't use data, don't use examples, don't use that here. Because here, this is completely purely based on your interpretation, your understanding. Fourth problem that students are facing are language skills. Some of you, I know your content is okay. You are trying to convey it, but your language is a little weak. Your spellings are a little weak. Your choice of words is sometimes wrong. I can understand which word you wanted to use, but you've used a different or a wrong word. How do you overcome this? What I said earlier also to you, read good material. Read good material and create, what should I call it? Create a database from where you can use it. How you create the database, I'll explain to you in a few minutes. And of course, when you're writing, 2-3 students have this major problem. Their sentence does not finish. Sometimes the sentence goes on. I showed you an example also earlier, where the sentence goes on for almost the entire page. You don't break it. Break up the sentence into different smaller parts, smaller thoughts. It's easier to understand and it conveys the idea more effectively. Fifth and finally, many students are putting in minimal effort. They are just copying the notes that were given to them. They don't have systematic presentation. They don't choose the content carefully. These notes that are given to you are not, what should I say, this is not an open book test, where if I say write a topic on women or write an essay on women, you keep the women notes in front of you, pick up the first point and start writing, then turn 2 pages, then write another one. No. If under women, there are, let's say, 5 principles given, under each principle, let's say there are 5 dimensions given. If there are 25 dimensions, choose which 5 dimensions are most appropriate. Under those dimensions, choose which, in every dimension, which problem is relevant to this topic, which recommendation is relevant to the topic, which example is relevant to the topic. And most of them can be used interchangeably. So even if an example is not given here, if it's given somewhere else, you can pick it up and use it. Provided again, you tailor it to suit the topic. Therefore, again, select the content carefully, organize the flow, organize the structure of your essay well, and strive to be the best. Don't look for shortcuts. It's very easy to prepare for the essay paper, but please put in the right effort. All right. Keeping this in mind, now these are the concerns that some of you still have at this moment, where areas that you need to work. Now, before in fact, I'll just look at this in a minute. Let me just see what these people are saying. PDF uploaded was that of how to tailor the content. Body paragraph PDF is of the work given to us by sir, 2 classes. Body paragraph PDF. Body paragraph PDF. What is the body paragraph PDF? Body paragraph PDF was uploaded even before that. Did you get a PDF before this also? When I said look at the test, body paragraph 1. Great people. Let me just finish the class. I'll have a word with them. I'll see that everything is uploaded. I'll take a look at it myself. In partially agree type of essays, dominant focus should be on thesis of question or balance both of them. The dominant focus should be on creating a balance, that partly you agree, partly you disagree, partly you support, partly you oppose, partly you say it should continue, partly you believe that it should be modified or changed. You maintain a balance. Now, keeping this in mind, what do you do from now on? Now, I don't know when you are writing your exam. I don't know when hopefully you will get to get a chance to write your mains. Whether you are writing your prelims in 2022 or you're planning to write them in 23, for the essay paper, right now, you people are fresh. Whatever we've discussed, whatever you've read, even if you blindly copied the content and written your essays, you've still written 6 essays in the last 1 month. You are still adequately prepared. You are sort of clued in. You are at your peak as far as the essay is concerned. My advice would be, the prelims are still what, about 5.5 months away. In the month of December this year itself, please complete this exercise. You have about 24 days left in this month. If you put in 2 hours every day, just 2 hours every day, doing this is going to be very easy. But if you do this, whether you write your mains in 22 or 23 or 24, the bulk of your work is already done. Many people tell you that to prepare for the essay paper on your own, what should you do? Practice essay writing. Absolutely wrong. Practicing essay writing, writing an essay, is more about time management. On the other hand, preparing for an essay largely depends upon your content and the organization of that content. So what will you do? Some students, someone said earlier that, sir, can we get some topics? Don't use topics that are given by me or by someone else. You please use topics that are given by the UPSC. What will you do? Number one, and this part understand carefully, collect content on each of the 10 themes that we've discussed. What themes have we discussed? We've discussed media, we've discussed women, we've discussed healthcare, we've discussed poverty, we've discussed education, we've discussed international relations, agriculture, economics, and so on. There were 10 themes that have been discussed here for you. First, collect content on them. How do you collect content? For each of these themes, make a list of 5 previous year's topics, just 5, not more than that. If you think you don't have the time, if you think that there are other areas that you need to study, don't do 5, do only 3. With the exception, just remove reflective topics from here. If you do it for 3, that is 30 topics you're preparing. If you do it for 5, that is 50 topics that you're preparing. How much space will you take to prepare them? 1 sheet per topic, not more than that. For women, healthcare, media, anything else, 5 or 3 topics, depending on how much time you have. I would advise at least 5. For reflective topics, whether or not you have time, at least 10 topics, because this is 1/2 of your essay paper. One reflective essay that you're writing is going to be assessed out of 125 marks, and 125 marks is more than anything that is given in your GS papers. Anything, paper 1, 2, 3, 4, there's nothing that carries 125 marks. One reflective essay that you write will be assessed out of 125, and you can get 70, 75, 80. Some students, in fact, have got 80 also. That will be assessed only out of that. So first, make a list of 3 or 5. That I leave up to you, depending on how much time you have. Number 2, for each of these topics, note down content for the introduction, for the 5 body paragraphs, and for the conclusion. Where will you note down this content from? Most of the content, about 80% of the content that you can need in the essay paper, is given in your handouts. But, and let me just briefly take you back over here, there could be some topics which are written in such a manner that you might lack some content. If you lack content, don't restrict yourself only to the class notes. Do a little bit of research, search for a better example, search for some new point, search for a new recommendation, and add that, not to your notes, but to these topics over here, the template that you're creating. Number 3, for the introduction and the conclusion, don't write one, note down 2 pieces of content. In the introduction, if I need an anecdote or if I need an example, don't note 1 example down, note 2. Note 2 more for the conclusion. Why? Because this is a topic that you're preparing, that you're practicing with. What comes in the actual exam, we don't know. So if you have this written over here, at least your mind works on multiple platforms. If not the first, the second will work. If the 2 in the introduction don't work, the 2 in the conclusion at least will work for you. 1 in the intro, 1 in the conclusion. Third, for the body paragraphs, just 3 points you're writing. First, what is your concern? Second, what is the recommendation? And third, what is the evidence that you can give for it? In this manner, do this for 30 or do this for 50 topics. That depends completely upon you. Number 1, this is just a list of points. Number 2, for every single topic, write, and this means actually write body paragraph number 1 in 100 to 150 words. 100 to 150 words, not more than that, especially for students whose English is weak. When you're writing body paragraph number 1, write slowly, write carefully, write in pencil if you want rather than a pen, so that you can change words later if you want. When you're writing it, choose the best words, the best phrases, the best language that you can. 100 to 120 words. This part, you are just noting down the content. You're just writing points. This paragraph, you're actually writing the best paragraph that you're capable of writing. And when you're selecting these topics, for example, see, for women, in the last 1993, the essay paper was introduced. You might find about 14, 15 topics. Choose any 5, and which 5 will you choose? Choose topics that are static or that are general rather than current affairs or specialized topics. If, let's say, in 2007, there was something related to women which had just come up, for example, reservation of women in parliament, that may not come again. But we can talk about empowerment of women in general. So don't choose very specific or very current affairs based topics. Choose general. Choose more static topics, because your task is to organize the content. Once you've done this, what does your sheet look like? Your sheet essentially will look like this. I have got one A4 sheet, whatever is the topic, let's say something to do with, let's say, media. I have an introduction, two pieces of content that I've chosen, whichever two examples. I have one well written, properly written body paragraph, 150 words. After that, I have a list of 5 body paragraphs. Each of them contains a set, 5 sets of concern, recommendation, and evidence. Well chosen, well selected for that topic. And then I have a conclusion, which again has 2 examples. What is this called? This or these now are your actual essay notes. When you finish with your prelims and when you are preparing for your mains, that is the time when you practice essay writing. Do you need to join a test series for that? Answer is no. Whatever is the score that you're getting here today in the 3 tests, take an average of that. That is where you currently stand. Before your mains, do you need to come back here to Wajiram? No. Do you need to join an essay test series? No. You have the ability now to practice essay writing on your own, but that time you will focus on time management. For example, every day I tell myself that I have a total of 12 weeks before the mains are coming up. Every week I will write one essay. What essay will I write? This week I will write on women. Next week I'll write on poverty. Week after that I will write something or the other. And whatever I'm writing on, before that, what will I do? I have, for example, for women, I have a handout which is 16, 17 pages, plus I have 5 essays written in front of me. I've got a broad structure, but I will not write on one of these topics. I will write on some other topic. When I write on that topic, what will I do? These body paragraphs, this content over here, this introduction and conclusion, the content over there, this is fresh in my mind. These are 5 A4 sheets plus another 15, 16 pages of the handout. Now I know exactly where my content is coming from. No matter what the topic is, no matter what they give you, your content is ready, minimum effort, but you will be able to score marks very easily. This I am leaving completely up to you. Now, whether you do this for 5 topics per theme, whether you do it for 3 topics per theme, or whether you don't do it at all, this I have no idea. That depends completely upon you. If you're writing your mains in January 2022, I'm writing one essay daily. Rather than writing one essay daily, I would say that you please diversify your portfolio. See, I know I won't take your names because I don't want them to know that, but I have read your essays. Your marks are also very high. If your marks are very high, you don't need to write essays over and over again. I would much rather prefer that you look at the previous year's essays and you collect the way that I'm explaining, you collect the content. Your language is clear, your structuring is very clear, visually your essays look very good. So you don't have to, blind. The only thing I hope, I don't know how much time you're taking, but I hope you're able to finish it in the given time. If you can finish it in the given time, don't write entire essay, save some time. Spend 1 hour on an essay every alternate day on preparing content. Because as long as the content is ready, you will be able to write it. Once in a week, if you want to write an essay, that's enough, but not daily. For 1.5 hours, I can't spend just writing. Okay, so do that if you're writing your mains right now. The rest of you, are you following this? And I assure you, if you make this right now, you have time. Now, he is writing his mains in 22. Many of you will be writing it much later. The month of December, your test series has just about started for the prelims. You have time. Preparing for the prelims, if you want to pass your prelims, takes about 3 months' time. Roughly 3 months of hard, focused effort, which means you start somewhere around March. In the month of December, if you do this, while again, this essay discussion, these essays that you've written are fresh in your mind. Once this content is ready, later you can just pick it up, put it on the side, file it away clearly, put it on the side. Before your mains, after your prelims, pick it up. Essay writing will seem very, very easy, very, very smooth for you. Does everyone follow? All right. Now, before we conclude, does anyone have any question? Whatever your handouts, I'll take a look at them, what they've uploaded, what they've not uploaded. I'll check whatever I've sent them. I'll get it uploaded one more time if there's something left over. All right. And I believe there are no more questions. Again, I'm telling you, The one work that is left for you people, do not practice writing essays right now. It'll take up a lot of time and it won't really give you the confidence or the material that you need. Collect content, 3 or 5 topics per theme. Collect content for the introduction, body paragraphs, conclusion. Most importantly, write your body paragraphs. Take time, use any source that you want. Write good body paragraphs for body paragraph number 1 for each topic. Because later, once you read this, you will have almost any content. You'll have ready-made sentences that you can fit into one essay or the other, no matter what the topic is. All right, do this so that your content is ready. When will you get your answers? You'll get your answers by Friday. I'll give it to them by around Thursday. They'll take some time scanning and uploading it. And I think by around Friday morning or Friday afternoon, you should start getting them. And this time, everyone will get them together. That's why the earlier ones I've not given to you. All right. Is this the last lecture? Yes, my dear friend, it is the last lecture. All right. Then I don't think anyone has any more questions. Anytime, anything that you believe you need to consult me for, please drop me a line. Can you access me on the student portal? You people have the ability to send me a question over there. Yes, I'll get that also activated for you. You can get in touch with me over there. Please study. And again, I'm telling you, for this, do this as early as possible. With this, with the exception of the one student who's saying is writing his mains, rest of you, please try to complete this in the month of December itself. This will really give you a lot of dividends later once you're preparing for your mains. All right. Then this is where we'll conclude the classes. Thank you very much and wish all of you the very best for your exams. Thank you.